Daddy Seraphine, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
Well, you've given us so many great memories with music. We'd love to know who your inspirations were. Who are your heroes that inspired you to want to play music and devote your life to this?
Initially, it was Gene Krupa. I almost practically learned to play on the soundtrack of the Gene Krupa story, and then of course the Beatles and the Young Rascals and you name it. Just anything great. Like R&B, James Brown. Gosh, it's just Wipeout. I could play Wipeout with the best of them.
And where did you grow up?
Chicago.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Well, tell us how the whole Chicago Transit Authority all came together. What was the story behind the forming of the group?
Well, I was in two bands with Walter Parazader, Terry Kath, and myself were in two bands prior to forming what eventually morphed into the Chicago Transit Authority and then Chicago. It was a great ride. First of all, the first band that I was in with Walter and Terry was called, the name of the band was Jimmy Ford and the Executives. There was a horn band. For that day, that was just unheard of. And that band was Dick Clark's backup band for his Cavalcade of Stars. And so it was.
So they'd rotating singers come out?
Well, the band would go on tour on the Dick Clark tours, and that's how good they were. They was just an amazing band. And in those days, really, bands, it was before the Beatles, so it was pre-Beatles. And so until, before the Beatles, bands didn't make it. It was singles, kind of like the way it is now almost, with only singers,
Yeah.
So, that was just a great intro into music business and, rock and roll, playing with that band. My first road gig when I was 16 was in Pittsburgh, and was backing up Four Seasons, Luke Christie, Chuck Berry. So I backed up Chuck Berry. I was 16 years old, played behind Chuck Berry. It was an amazing experience. Amazing experience. So it was, it was just a great breeding ground for someone. I don't know if the younger musicians today, I don't think they have those kind of opportunities as many, as we had. And it's kind of unfortunate, but just the nature of the beast, it's the way it is today.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because, you guys really honed your craft. You were students of the game for so many years. You really, earned your chops from playing. And it seems like, with the budget cutbacks, cutting back, music in schools, the advent of technology where you can press a button and sample this or go to that, there's a mentality of looking for shortcuts. And we know from your era that there are none, and that even these people that they're sampling from dedicated their lives to this music.
Right.
What advice would you give to the young musicians, the young players, and bands and artists today, to what do they need to concentrate on to bring some of that back, to have some kind of lasting quality, and more importantly, some kind of innovation in their music to stand out of the crowd?
Well, first and foremost, do it for the music. Do it if you want to be a musician. Do it so that you can be great at playing music and expressing yourself. Do it for the art's sake.
Yeah.
And don't get into it to be a rock star. First of all, that's quite frankly, your chances of being a rock star are really slim. And do it because you love the music, because you love to play, or you love to sing, you love to compose, and learn as much as you can, from good teachers and good role models.
Find some mentors.
And, find some mentors, and just get into listen to earlier music from decades past and generations past, and learn from it, and just carry the torch. It's your job to make to carry the torch that we were handing to you.
Yeah.
And carry on a tradition of quality music, high integrity, and you'll do well. And be prepared to have a second and third job. It's really tough to make a living in the music industry these days. I'm hoping it gets better, but I don't know. It's terrible.
But learn from the masters, really develop some roots, find out
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
your favorite artists
Yeah, exactly.
grew from.
Exactly. I mean, it's, there's honestly, there's more talented people now than there's ever been, So, what does that tell you,
Sure.
So, but there's been a great deal of sharing between all of us over these last generations, these decades, Where we want to share what we know and what we've learned,
Sure.
So,
Let's talk about the breakthrough of Chicago in those early days. What are your fondest memories of the band really, making those first songs and albums that really received the attention? What was the greatest joy in that?
the greatest joy is actually today, 45 years later, it still sounds great. So most of those songs are timeless. And that's the greatest joy to me. It's the reward. That's the big reward. Is like, all that hard work and sacrifice. And we were very fortunate. We were one of the fortunate ones. We lasted so long. We enjoyed incredible success. We endured a lot of hardships too. But the greatest joy is listening to hearing it on the radio today, and it still sounds great. People tell me that music still sounds great.
Yeah. And is there any other music today that gives you joy? Any artists that you respect in today's world?
Of actual modern day, Ed Sheeran, I like him, like Gotye. I love Dave Matthews, and I think it's a really John Mayer, Alicia Keys. Nora Jones, wonderful. And there's even more modern, of course, that I'm leaving out. But, I think there's as many talented people as there has ever been. I just don't think that there's the vehicle or the avenue to expose them.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that changes, and that's what I would like to see.
There's less of an infrastructure. There's more reliance that the artists really develop their own base. And,
well, that's what we have to do these days.
In a way, it's kind of nice because you can make a living selling a lot less copies if you don't have all these companies and, hands in the middle. But, it is upon you as a creative person to get your team together to go out and, build your fan base.
Yeah,
so.
it's very... It's always been difficult, but I've never seen it more. So I'm hoping it gets better. It's in the process of reinventing itself, and I'm hoping that it finally does reinvent itself and become a really vibrant business again.
Yeah. And any specific highlights with any legends along the way? Is there a Hendrix story? Is there what are some of the characters in the past that crossed your path?
Hendrix was one that always comes to mind. I remember we were when we first moved out here in '68. We eventually became the house band at the Whiskey for Whiskey A Go Go, and I remember one night we finished the set and we got off stage and there's Hendrix there, and he tells us, looks us in the eye and says, "You're the best band I've ever heard. Love your band, loved it." And that was an amazing thrill. And then he took us out on tour, and we opened for him for 16 shows, I think, and it just really helped us break the band.